Welcome to CrackTalk.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of CrackTalk.
Hey, what's going on? I'm back, Dr. Jeremiah Holmes in the house, aka Dr. J, and we are once again second episode of CrackTalk, and we couldn't be more excited to be here. Thanks, Scott, for getting in this film with me and let's doing this podcast. Today we got a very interesting topic.
Very interesting.
Right? And it's called What's That Crack? And you guys have probably all seen this on TikTok and every social media video. I'm going to give you a little example. Scott, can I'm going to look at your elbow real quick. Yes, and we're going to adjust it. You get that right there? So what I just did is I smashed this bottle of water while I did that.
So isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So, you want to pop your finger like that. So most people have seen, I don't know if you have.
Oh yeah, it's the rage. So working in the chiropractic industry, this is one of the things that I get asked probably more than anything. Hey, have you seen that doc on TikTok or whatever, cracking the necks and this and that? And I mean, Jay, I do video stuff for a living. It literally is sound effects that are added to this.
Yes, I would imagine so. Being a chiropractor, first of all and foremost, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I've been practicing for over 20 years actively in the clinic, helping people go from in pain to out of pain, to living a life they are gotten disgusted and lost hope, and getting themselves into a place by adjusting their spine, getting their health and wellness on out, and getting them living a life of abundance that they want to be in. And they have fallen back in love with life, right? Because, if you've dealt with pain, I know I have. When you're in pain, or if any of you been in pain, you're done. You're a cooked chicken. You literally want to tap, like, Coach, take me out of this game. I'm done playing. So I've had the pleasure of those kind of experiences.
Right.
And Scott, just like you have said, in the office, I've not really heard the kind of sound effects that I have seen on social media, like we just said. So they're either popping a bag of chips, popping a bottle,
they're doing something.
But you know what? I like it.
Yeah.
Because it gets people thinking, wow, what is that? Now, I do want to forewarn everybody that was a fake adjustment. Okay, we do adjust elbows and spines and all that kind of stuff in our office, just like most chiropractors. But that was an exaggeration of what we're talking about today.
Right.
So you just said, Scott, and I get asked this every single patient that comes in the office, ask me, what causes the popping sound? Would you agree?
Yes.
And do you know what that is?
I have an idea, but I don't know. I'm actually very interested in
Great, that's why I'm here today.
What causes that?
It's very, very, very simple in its explanation, but very complex in the body. But I like to keep things very simple. What it is when you line up on a spinal joint, and I'm going to use my little spine guy here as an example as he's coming apart. Each one of these spinal segments that we locate, analyze, and then adjust the subluxation have 6 different potential joints around it. That's what helps hold the spine together, all right? So when you hear the crack or feel the popping sound, that's kind of what we hear. Oh, it's crack, or I hear that popping sound, or that kind of stuff. What is it? It's very simple in concept. It's basically we move the joint, just like you crack your fingers, just like you pull that finger and I had that little crack. It's gas escaping one of those 6 or all 6 of those joints when the chiropractor adjusts that spinal segment.
Can I actually?
Yeah, go ahead.
Pull the spine back up here. This is interesting. So when you guys think of joint, I think of elbow, shoulder, finger, something like that. So you're telling me there's 6 joints?
Yes.
Around each
movable
vertebrae.
segment. So there's 24 movable segments. Yes. There's less in the upper cervical area. There's a few there. But as you come down out of that, you're going to have your facet joints, which lock the bones each side, top and bottom. So there's 4. And then you have a joint on the top and the bottom of each disc that can cavitate. The actual word is called cavitation. When you move a bone and it creates the popping sound, that's called a cavitation. They actually have a term for it.
So when you're adjusting those joints, and in the last episode we talked about a subluxation or pressure on a nerve. So you're putting that joint, it's no different than adjusting any other joint or popping it. You're putting that back into place, which takes the pressure off
The nervous system.
And the popping noise is just gas.
Gases. And here it is, to get more technical, it's oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide that builds up in each one of these joints, just like I pop my finger, just like you sometimes will move a joint
Yeah, you
and
pop
you hear
the
it
shoulder.
pop. It's exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the chiropractor, like myself, is putting a direct force or a vector force into that spinal segment to move from what is out of place back into place.
Gotcha.
All right? And so that takes me back to now that you understand the popping, and I hope it reduces the fear of anybody watching or listening to this podcast, because there's a lot of fear around it. You know, we've all watched Rambo. The guy goes like this, and he cracks the neck, and he falls over, and he's dead. Or Van Damme movies, or any of these. The Ultimate Warrior would jump off the top rope and paralyze somebody's spine. It's all fake. Yeah. This is not easy. I haven't decapitated anybody to date. I haven't broken anybody's neck or done any of those fancy moves.
Well, that's something you always get asked too. So most of the fear that comes in around chiropractic is like, well, I might go to the chiropractor, but I don't want him to touch my neck.
Every day in the office, we have new patients that are coming in. And so if you're one of those people, I sympathize, I empathize, and I understand where you're coming from. Because, Scott, it's a daily event that people are worried. Oh, you can do everything else, fingers, toes, hips, knees. Oh, don't touch my neck. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you the issue with that is your neck is where the most important nerve roots that innervate your entire body's function exist. Right? So I want to go into that a little bit, because as we're talking about the popping and the cracking and we're making a parody of it, there's something very serious going on here. That question needs to be answered. Why does the chiropractor adjust the spine?
Right.
And I think a lot of people have not been led down the right road. And I'm going to apologize for the chiropractic profession for us doing a very poor job in educating the public about what we do. Because most people, would you agree, think if I got headaches, neck pain, back pain, you go to the chiropractor, but that's it.
Right.
And I want everybody to understand it's way more than that. Yes, those things can be helped.
Well, and it's like we talked about on the very first episode, and kind of tying in, having a healthy heart and tying that into chiropractic, because it's something you wouldn't put those two together.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you just, you've got 6 joints around each vertebra.
Yes.
You're doing an adjustment. So what is the power of that? I mean,
here it is. Why do we adjust?
Yes.
So I love that you're asking this question, because I don't think people understand. Why did that chiropractor crack that person's
I really
neck?
don't know what it is. So all you see on TikTok and stuff is the crack.
A whole
stuff,
bunch
but
of
we
cracking.
really don't know what that means. How does that then help migraines? Or, last week we discussed heart disease and having a healthy heart and stuff like that. So I love this. What actually happens during an adjustment?
It's very simple in concept. Once again, I love using this term. It's very simple in concept, but very complicated inside the bodies and with the anatomy and physiology. So, but I'm going to break it down. We are looking for one thing and one thing only. That is a vertebral subluxation. And a subluxation is a crazy word that they use, means less than dislocation. So we don't deal with spinal dislocations. That's when bones jump. That is a surgical procedure, right? We deal with subluxation in the chiropractic office. And Scott, it might sound simple, but it's very catastrophic if this happens, where one of those bones or multiple of those bones move 1 to 5 millimeters, either left, right, up, or down. And when that happens, if I grab the spine again, when this bone moves up, down, left, or right, you see these little yellow dangly things? Those are the nerve roots. We talked about this on the last episode. And these nerve roots come from the brain, spinal cord, out these nerves to every tissue, cell, and organ in your body, telling it what to do, how to do certain functions.
Right. And and that's pretty important. I mean, the central nervous system controls everything in the body.
Yes. And I don't think there's enough education around that either, Scott.
No, I'm as you're telling me this, I'm feeling the importance of this. And then something you said just a minute ago, 1 millimeter.
1 millimeter.
1 millimeter, that's not far. That's not much.
I don't know if any of you have measured a millimeter. It's very small. 5 millimeters.
So you think about something
minimal.
Moved. All of a sudden, in my brain, I think something is moved. It's this. It could be very minimal, of 1 to 5 millimeters.
Yes.
Okay.
Bone moves out of place. And here's what's important about that. When that bone puts pressure on that nerve, they have done studies that the weight, everybody think about this. If you don't have a dime, find a dime and put this in your hand. The weight of a dime can reduce the nerve function at that nerve root, the weight of a dime, that much pressure, by 70%. Now, would you think that's good or bad?
So when you say nerve function, that is the message from the brain.
Yes.
Getting to that portion of the body. So
whether
as we
it's going
discussed,
to a muscle, whether it's going to a ligament, a tendon, it's going to a vital organ.
yeah. So as we discussed last week, it's coming to me now. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
if 70% weight of a dime reduces that function by 70%, that means 70% of that message.
Yep.
So your brain is telling, let's take your bladder. For a
Yes.
better, I'm just thinking, telling it what to do.
Yeah.
70% of that message is not getting there.
Yes, and here's what's crazy about that. You're not going to feel it. So like we talked about in the first episode, is only 9% of your nervous system feels pain. And most people would think that 100% of your nerves feel pain.
Yeah.
That's fallacy. Only 9%. That means 91%, Scott, are telephone wire that when cut, whatever's on the other end of it ceases to stop working. So let's go back to your bladder example. You could have a hyperactive bladder. A subluxation putting pressure on the nerve that goes to that bladder, it could cause the bladder to be hyperactive, hypoactive, inactive. Or it could function just a little off that you don't know, but over time, the bladder gets diseased. And see, these are the simple, like when we talked about unrelated topics about chiropractic and connecting them, these are the miracles that we see often in our office. Somebody has excessive urination, right? And just to use your topic. And then next thing you know, they start getting adjusted and they're like, hey doc, my low back pain has went away, but I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I also now have control of my bladder. Does it have anything to do with it? And I say, absolutely, because the power that made the body heals the body, Scott. And if we get your brain sending spinal signals down your spinal cord, out your spinal nerves to your body, it's going to function and be a self-healing, self-regulating machine. But here's another question that we get, and I know you're thinking it. How in the heck do I get subluxation? Yes. Do you not get this question?
I'm actually thinking back how I'm a few conversations back just thinking,
go ahead.
Holy cow, how powerful is this? Just the realization of what you're telling me right now, of the power that the brain has with the body. And as we discussed last time, 91% of the nerves don't feel pain.
Yes.
So therefore you could have something that is diseased in your body and you don't know it. That could be caused by a simple subluxation or misalignment in the spine.
Yes.
See, that to me, it kind of blows me away.
I know, it's mind-blowing. I want you to think about, though, what happens to somebody? Let's just use the bladder. Let's all use the bladder as an example. Excessive urination. Where would you go if you were having excessive urination?
I'd go to a
urologist,
yeah.
Right? You would say, hey, check my prostate, check my bladder, check my urethra. Is everything working? And they're going to go in there and say, everything's working, but you have excessive urination. So what we're going to do is we're going to hand you what?
Probably some kind of pill
or a medication that's going to slow down the bladder's function if it's excessive,
right? Or
if it's hypoactive and it's holding too much fluid, right? They're going to get it to evacuate, get you on a diuretic. So we're often confused as a society that medications heal the body. They don't. They only mask usually symptoms. So when you go to a chiropractor, it's going to often be a very different conversation. We're looking for things that are inherently decreasing your body's ability to function. Now, we don't take claim for the miracle. Because, listen, if you have bladder issues and you come in and you start getting adjusted because you have low back pain, we're going to say, hey, you know what? We're glad we helped you with your low back pain, but we're blessed that your body's a self-healing, regulated machine. We got those messages. Your body healed itself. But here's the other tragic thing. Let's use the bladder as an example, okay? What happens if the medication doesn't work? Where do most people end up? Under the knife.
Yeah. Or trying some kind of crazy remedy.
Look it up on TikTok, right? I mean, staying upside down for 5 days.
Self-diagnosed via TikTok. Coming home, it's like, why are you hanging upside down? Oh,
I got bladder problems. Yeah. And so we see this, and we really try to educate people in our office. One thing that I just wanted to remind all of our viewers and listeners, why do we do this podcast? Why would a chiropractor that's got a successful business come from the table out into this? and put himself out there like this and start talking about unrelated and talk about what's the popping noise. Because we're having a big difficult time just educating our patients inside the clinic about what this is. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because we feel, or I specifically feel, that more people, if they understood how their body works and how certain things happen to them, they can get empowered and walk through life a little happier, a little healthier every day, right? So the reason for this podcast that Scott and I have put together is, first of all, we want to freaking get everybody educated at the best level. So now today you're educated on what's the popping noise, man? Why it's not a bottle underneath the table that I'm cracking.
Well, what's interesting to me is it's so much more than the crack. Just to go in and have you just telling us about an adjustment and the power of the adjustment and what can happen in a subluxation. All we pay attention to is the crack. So let me ask you a question. This just popped in my head. So what if there is no crack?
Perfectly fine. Great adjustment. Okay. And this is another thing that I wanted to address, is if you don't hear the crack, or you hear just a little crack, that does not mean that the chiropractor did not do their job. Scott, we have light force for babies to geriatrics. We have stuff that we have to do different for. If a guy comes in and he's 6'8", 300 pounds, like he's a lineman, beat up from playing the Chiefs, I'm going to have to adjust him a lot different. Would everybody not consider this? Adjust him a lot different than a brand new infant that's a week old.
Well, that's actually a fantastic point, and it popped into my head is when you see that or hear that crack the way it's portrayed right now, it is fearful to think who can withstand that or who can handle that kind of adjustment, because you guys see, like you said, from infancy all the way up to geriatric elderly. Yeah. And there must be hundreds of ways to do an adjustment.
Hundreds of different ways. And we always say cradle to grave. We see people from cradle to grave. Yeah. And it's interesting because most chiropractors are that dynamic. And it's something that's not really talked about in our profession, is how dynamic a chiropractor can take a 1-week-old baby and adjust and make sure their spine coming out of that birth canal, they're laying in that crib, maybe they're dealing with some colic, maybe they're dealing with some digestion issues, maybe they're evacuation issues. If any of you have ever had a child, kids are unkind. They start going through stuff at an early age, and you'll do whatever it takes to get that baby to calm it down a little bit in the cradle.
Actually, Ike, you just gave me an idea for episode 3 of Crack Talk. Maybe we talk about prenatal, because isn't that like the most traumatic thing to happen to the child's life and the mother's life is pregnancy?
Pregnancy is one of the more massive traumas that each and every one of us will ever deal with. And so I'm glad I made it, and I'm glad you made it. I'm glad all you listeners have made it. And we'll talk about that next time.
I'd like to get into that on one of our shows.
We see people at different stages in life, and listen, if you're in a major motor vehicle accident, Scott. So I always like to say, how do people get subluxation? Because there's a misnomer about that. They think they have to do something outrageous, like bam, super big duper car accident, or they had to get ran over by a linebacker, or fall off of my daughter's a cheerleader. They got to fall off of being a flyer at a cheer squad. And no, that is one of our T's. So we have 3 T's, okay? Traumas, toxins, and thoughts. That's how you get subluxation. So I'm just going to elaborate on this a little bit. If you guys give me a second. Traumas, macro traumas, car accidents, getting ran over by Lambo, getting hurt, fall out of a tree. Most of these happen, though, from 5 to 10 years of age. Yeah. I mean, if you all think about riding a dirt bike, falling out of the tree.
I haven't fallen out of a tree in many a year.
Well, if you did now, you'd be paralyzed. Yes. At 5 years old, you fall out of a tree, you get up like a whippersnapper, like a rubber band. Yeah. That doesn't mean you didn't sustain any trauma or any of these bones shifted out of place. They often do, and they often lead to adult issues. Right? That's what we also call subluxation, that silent killer, because these bones stay out of place, causing nerve damage over so many years, and you don't know it until it's a major issue. The other one is micro traumas. Somebody's at a keyboard all day, pulling a lever at work.
How about a phone?
Oh my goodness, right now we're dealing with the biggest epidemic of people with text neck. Everybody's looking down at their phone, and they're reducing the curve that's in their neck, and they're having headaches. We're having kids nowadays coming to the clinic, Scott, 5 years old, headaches. Never has existed on the planet.
Unbelievable.
All because of tablets, cell phones. So if you want to have your kid on a tablet, cell phone, make sure they're in an ergonomic position that's conducive to their spine. Do some research on it. I'm sure we'll do a podcast on it. But I want to continue.
But that is a micro trauma.
That's a micro trauma.
So just the way we sit.
Micro traumas are repetitive motions over time that disrupt the anatomy of your body.
So sedentary,
absolutely.
sitting like this. I mean, you start to slunk over, head down.
Laying on the couch, flipping the remote.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, sedentary lifestyle, repeated events. You train your body to be in a wrong, aberrant position. But I want to get to the next one.
Toxins.
Most people don't think about toxins. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the fluids we drink. When these things are put into our bodies, Scott, by either your nose or your mouth through your digestive tract, think about how many chemicals are in here. How many chemicals are in the food and the fluids we drink, right? So we're nothing but a big bag of chemicals anyway. All right? How muscles contract, how ligaments tear, how joints build up gases, all these are chemical reactions. So if you take a whole bunch of chemicals into your body through the air, food, or fluid, it can start creating muscle spasms. So let's say you eat something and you start spasming here. Boom, pulls a bone out of place, subluxation. Now we have a problem. That's correctable by the chiropractor, but you first got to identify it, all right? And I want to lead you to the last one. So we now got to know how important it is to what food, air, and fluids we drink. The biggest one, have you ever heard that stress kills?
Oh, yeah.
Have any of you ever heard stress kills?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we all have, because it actually does. And our last T is thoughts. And we use the word thoughts because it goes with the T, you know.
Got it.
Yeah, traumas, toxins, thoughts. But really it's stress. And when people have inherent stress, we've all seen it. Yeah. This guy's got big muscles, so you think he's got these big muscles and little bones, and is that big muscle going to pull that bone out of place if you get super stressed out about something?
Well, it's funny you say that because I carry my stress right there, and it just aches when you get super stressed out. You feel the ache in your traps, upper part of your back, shoulders, and things like that.
And when it does
that can actually wreak havoc.
Boom. Pulls the bone out of place, 1 to 5 millimeters, subluxation. Now you have nerve interference, you have a subluxation. Now your body's in a compromised state. So that's very important, would you not, to understand where you get subluxation. So you got to understand what subluxation is, how you get it, and then if you get it, how does the chiropractor treat it?
Right.
Well, in most chiropractic offices, you're going to go in there and the chiropractor is going to do a full history, right? Family history, go into how did you get this? Where did it come from? Were you in the motor vehicle accident?
Right.
Did you get ran over by a linebacker? Do you pull the lever all day? Are you on your cell phone, right? We're going to go through that. Scott, then we're going to move to a full comprehensive exam. And this is where the rubber meets the road in any chiro office. We're going to do an extensive orthopedic neurological examination on your spine, doing certain things to see what segments are affected and are affecting your nervous system. Because as we already established, the nervous system controls every system function in your body, right? And if it's compromised, would you have increased health or decreased health?
Decreased.
Decreased health. Increased quality of living, decreased quality of living.
Right, decreased.
Yeah, and we're here to help everybody pump up the jam a little bit.
Right.
Okay? Then, depending on that orthopedic neurological test, we're also going to do range of motion, see if you have any restrictions. We're also going to do a very, very visual posture analysis, and then x-rays. And most chiropractors are going to take visual x-rays. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to hit 2 things real quick. There's 2 reasons we take x-rays in every one of our offices. The first reason is we don't touch anybody at core health centers without knowing exactly what their spine looks like. This is for your protection as well as our protection. I mean, would you want somebody messing with your car without running a scan and seeing what it's all about? No, because then they're just tinkering.
Yeah.
Okay? The second reason is we need to know if you're even eligible to be treated. Okay. I want that to sink in.
So what do you mean by eligible?
Eligible means that you are able to be a chiropractic patient. You must be eligible, all right? Okay. And there's people that we see, unfortunately, it's very unfortunate, that become uneligible because of something lurking in their spine. And I'm going to give you some examples, and they're pretty grotesque. When we do x-rays and we do exams, we often see fractures, dislocations, bone infections, bone bruises, and I'm going to tell you, even worse, cancer. And that's never good news. If you have any of those 5 things, you cannot be a patient in our clinic.
Okay.
Now, we're going to help you get referred out to the right provider that handles it. But those are situations we don't handle. We deal with subluxation that creates nerve interference by putting those bones back into place, getting the nerve flow going so your body can function properly and you get back to life. You usually get out of pain, then inherent things start going away. We want people living that. So do you get that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So would you believe x-rays are super duper important in the chiropractic office?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, the example of the car, I don't want somebody coming in and
No.
doing something without taking a look.
Why would you?
Yeah. Especially if we're going through and we're doing the history and you guys, we're doing the neurological exams and stuff like that. And all of a sudden you go, hey, I did have an auto accident, or I did have a motorcycle accident back when I was a kid, or I did get run over by a linebacker. Yeah. I want to see what's going on.
But as soon as I hear that as a chiropractor, I'm like, bam, we got to have x-rays.
Yep. See what's happening.
And even if listening to this are a patient, and you have a new motor vehicle accident, if you came into our office, we're taking new x-rays because I got to see if things have moved out of place worse.
Right.
And it happens. All right. So I often, when we've only done 2 of these, so this has been fantastic, and I hope everybody has understood what's that crack sound. It's not a bottle that we only hear. I'm gonna hit it again, right? It's not a bag of chips. It's gases leaving the joint, called cavitation, to be technical. When a chiropractor is introducing a specific force to adjust the bone that's out of place back into place. So what are the action steps? All right. The first thing is relax. First action step. And I was just in the office the other day, Scott, and a girl, I said, hey, have you ever been under chiropractic? She said, no, I'm terrified.
Right.
She said, that cracking noise is like traumatic for me. I said, well, you've obviously watched TikTok or any of these social media because people are on right now. I mean, they got like 5-10 million views.
Oh, yeah.
And it become like a systemic deal. And I said, well, let me just put you at ease. Not every adjustment is going to have a cracking or popping. If that terrifies you, we can maneuver around that and still get the bones from out of place in place. So my first action step is let's just all relax and know that there's, as you said, 100 different ways.
As I say, you can actually have an adjustment fit someone's comfort level.
Yes.
More or less. So, and that is a big misconception.
Huge.
With what you see on social media and stuff right now, is everybody thinks that's the way it is, and they're scared to death of it, when in reality, you can kind of tailor it, that their treatment plan can be tailored, individualized to them, to their comfort level, everything.
It always has to be.
Right.
Comfort level, their ability to accept the adjustments.
Right.
If somebody has, so let's say they've had a fusion of their neck, they can still get adjusted. They're just not going to be able to get adjusted exactly the same way as somebody that doesn't have a fusion in their neck. So it's the chiropractor's responsibility to work with your body. So that's when I say relax, it's like, that leads me to the second one. You want to find a chiropractor that's the best in your region. All right? And the best way to go about that is ask around. If you see one of these cool t-shirts right here, I mean, they're going to say it's the best in the business, right? But it's one of those things, if you're in an area where we don't have a clinic, you're going to want to find who is somebody you can trust, because that's a big thing too.
Right.
Going into a chiropractic office is very different, Scott, than going to any other office. It's not one and done. You're going to build a relationship with that chiro, hopefully for life, taking you from, we call it our 3 phases of care. Get the patient out of pain, get them restored. Those are our most intensive phases of care. Restored means gets curves back into the spine that are supposed to be there, and get curves that are not supposed to be there kicked out of that spine. And that takes time. Just like you. I mean, you're a muscle guy. You know, you have to go to the gym 4, 5, 6 days a week to get these results. And then you have to eat properly.
And unfortunately, I have to consistently do it too.
For life. Or it goes away quick. I found that muscles go away like that.
There was a commercial out not too long ago where the guy comes out and he does like 1 push-up and he's healthy forever. I'm like, why can't it be that easy?
They must have got in my dreams.
Yeah. Why can't
about
it be
how
that
easy? I want to do 1 sit-up and have a freaking 20-pack. But it doesn't work that way. So consistency over time. So I hope that each and every one of you have found some clarity. First, relax. Second, find a recommendation for the best chiropractor. And then third one is get your spine checked. And I say that because your life depends on it. Because you might be dealing with something where you've only been given medication and it's not working. The next option is surgery. Maybe you haven't even gotten that far. You might not be at that point of drugs and surgery. And that's great, because my vision for each and every one of you that are watching this or listening to this is that you live a pain-free, happy, healthy, wonderful existence, and you are freaking smacking life and getting every single thing you want out of it. That's the miracle. Is that I want that? I want you all to have that for me. I want to have that for you, Scott. I also want to have his muscles. I know you all do too. So, Scott, there it is. That's our crack talk today.
I love it. The power. We actually went from what causes the crack to kind of like that's the power of the crack.
Yes, the power of the crack.
I don't know if that's a good thing to say or not.
In our office, it is.
The power of the crack. In a chiropractor's office, that's the only place you can get away with saying the power of the crack.
Power of the crack. Yeah, so just remember, what's the crack?
So much more than that.
It's so much more than that. All right,
guys, thank you for tuning in to Crack Talk Episode 2. We'll be back soon, and until then, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. Guys, be good.
Bye.